We have arrived. This is Webb Parton, your host, and we welcome you to the Free Range Dogs podcast. This is a place where we stake out a shady spot and talk about all things dog. Find yourself a soft piece of grass, spin a few circles, plop down, rest your feet, and join us in this joyful conversation. Hi, this is Webb Parton with freerangedogs.com, and we're talking today with Kimber Barrus. She's an off-leash dog hiker, which is a wonderful gig, a great job. And I wanted to talk with you today about that because it's probably a dream job for most folks. You know, they think about, boy, if I could spend every day just walking with my dog and doing all that kind of neat stuff. How long have you been doing that sort of work?
I have been 11 years. 9 of those are on my own, with my own business. So I started with a friend, and now with the caveat that I would go off on my own to see if I liked it and could do it.
And how many dogs do you normally have with you on a hike?
Right now, as I've aged, I am doing smaller packs, and so I only have 7 clients on my books, and usually I take no more than 5 dogs out at a time, and sometimes 2 of those are mine. So
okay.
I'm a very small, stay under the radar.
How long does a typical hike last?
That's something my clients are very lucky for because I am fortunate enough I can just be out and about doing my thing. And so I guarantee, generally I always say an hour and a half because weather permitting. But usually I'm on the trail 2.5 hours just because I can be. So I'm lucky that way.
And you're located right on the Wasatch Front.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
From your backyard, you're looking right up the mountain.
Yep. Yeah. Olympus right there.
You know, I used to spend a lot of time following dogs.
Oh,
and
nice.
As a gun dog trainer and as a quail guide. And I truly enjoyed those times, you know, and I miss that. And I know that over the years I've done a lot of work. We're in Salt Lake City today, and I've done a lot of work in Salt Lake and quite a few off-leash dog hikers, that groups, you know, where the entire pack comes and we get everybody trained out.
Oh, nice.
And I always thought, God, what a great job.
Yeah.
There must be quite a balance. You've got all those different personalities within that group.
Yes.
And do you have certain minimums and maximums in terms of size or breeds or?
I try not to be breed specific, but I say this as I age because I have, I'm 52 years old. I'm out there on the trail, and last year I lost 4 of my older senior dogs. They all passed away, and I didn't realize how awesome that was. They were with me for like 6 years, and we just had this very cohesive, I knew everyone so well. I never worried what trail we were on. I never worried about coming up to people. And so I took on several dogs that were younger, first of last year, and I was not one of those dogs are hiking with me to this day. I have switched gears, being that I can. I say that because my husband is very generous, and I do this basically for fun. I'm really lucky that way. And so I have kept my packs really small. Like I said, I'll take 3 or 4 client dogs at a time. And yeah, we have relationships now, and it's working. And I don't want to, I like the smaller packs. I like being able to know them very well again. So we'll be hiking for a long time because I have some younger dogs, like year-old dogs now, and then I have a puppy. And so, I'll be out there for a lot longer again. So
how do you make that first introduction? Because I imagine you get a new dog in. I know when I was training, dogs would come to live with us. It was a 3-month program.
Wow.
And so they would come in at 10 months old. And they'd be with us for 3 months, and then they'd go home, and then we would literally, one day everybody's going home, the next day the new class is coming in. There was always, my wife tells me, it's sort of like an elementary school classroom. Because
Definitely.
You have that whole different amalgam of personalities and temperaments, and
Yep.
and everything has to sort of equalize and settle itself out. And I know that for us, we had the benefit of having our own dogs a dominant female, dominant male that ran the dog yard. We used a communal dog yard.
Yeah.
I'm presuming your dogs probably serve that same function for you when you bring in new ones?
Yeah. Ace, my 13-year-old standard poodle, he started hiking with a group and other dogs when he was about 2.5. And he was already clearly an alpha, dominant. He didn't do any aggressive work, but puppies always knew exactly what to expect from him. You don't get in his face and you don't linger too long. And so he was definitely, I'm not sure who that will be nowadays in my pack, because I have just these really nice, calm dogs, and my little 7-month-old puppy is not the one. She's just too sweet and nice. But I don't know. I don't really have anybody taking over that. I am considered their alpha. And so they definitely listen to me and look for me to tell them what they need to be doing. I was number 1, and then Ace was always number 2, but he thought he was number 1. But he still does. He just can't see. Now he just air barks at everybody. But
well, let's hope we all get to that place. Yeah.
I think the thing about with a dominant dog and an alpha dog, I have found there's a difference. And some people, the dominant dogs are the ones that kind of maybe look for trouble, whereas an alpha dog, and I could be completely wrong on this, they actually just prevent trouble. So they don't necessarily go forward to look for trouble, but if someone comes to them with trouble, they put a stop to that. And that is something I have noticed with Ace. He was like, no, that's not what we do. You don't do that. And he always made every puppy would never go around him. But then he would want to play. And they were like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Are we playing? So he kind of bit off, his own face, to me.
He was a benevolent ruler.
Yes, exactly. He's like, I don't get to play with anybody.
Right.
But
do you ever use anything like tracking collars or any ways to keep track of them when you cut them loose? How do you handle that?
No, actually. So all the dogs, whenever I take on a new client, you asked about that, I always start with them on leash. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when getting in my car, because we do pick up, hike, drop off. And so I always go and meet them. I usually beforehand and let them get in my car before anybody's even there or anything. And then when I do pick up for them, depending on who is in my car, if, for instance, my poodle was in the car, I would let him out of the car so they could smell each other in not a closed space. And then they just get in the car. And for the most part, there's never been an issue getting dogs in cars with even like 5 dogs looking at them in their face. They just jump in. Some are a little more timid. Others I have just run as hard as they can in, And then, so we always start on leash. And it takes about, I'm not even kidding, like 10 minutes. And you can see that the dog's very interested in the other dogs. And so they just want to be around them. And so you call them back and you do recall work. And but we do use e-collar training too.
And is the e-collar for recall?
Yes, sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes you have dogs that have little behavior issues. And so you'll tone them to have them come back to you to avoid any kind of confrontation or such.
And you've got to work with different genetics, the different cast of characters that comes in.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And so you're probably seeing things like some be attracted, have strong prey drive, and some might be hurting the other dogs. And some
Exactly.
Right.
Everything that, if anybody's listening, their dog has, I've dealt with that. If, among other dogs coming into the pack, like that we meet on the trail, you can just tell that their personalities are ready too. I must say, I feel like around here in our area, most dogs that are off leash are equipped with the tools to be off leash. You know what I mean? So they're fine to be out there. And when other dogs come up to them, they can handle that. Even if it's a pack because I do walk with another dog walker, and sometimes we'll have 10 dogs between the two of us. And most dogs can handle it when they're approached by the pack. Mm-hmm. So some just want to join, and their parents are sad that they can't. So.
Well, there is such joy in watching a group of dogs frolicking and playing and finally getting to the pond after a hot walk. And,
Yeah.
so, I mean, when you see dogs together on their own, sort of rejoicing in their dogdom,
Yes.
God, that's fun. That's just really fun.
It is fun. And we have, out in remote places, we'll meet up with even other dog pack hikers. And there's been sometimes we've had like 26 dogs. And they're just roaming in the fields and just playing. And of course, someone has to talk to someone else. It's communication. I mean, sometimes you walk in a room with 26 people and you want to maybe slap them in the face sometime. But, it's good to let the dogs communicate.
Mm-hmm.
I think people have a hard time with that. Mm-hmm. So that's one lesson I have really had to learn and accept.
You're saying let a dog be a dog with another dog?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They have to have a communication.
Yeah.
And generally, for the most part, no one takes it too far. No dog does.
Yeah, and I know for us, and we used a communal dog yard when I was training, and I typically had dominant female, dominant male, and I just let them work it out.
Yep.
Yeah. You trust that they're benevolent, and nobody gets hurt, but you just let them work it out, and it's typically a lot of bluster and pomp and circumstance, and then the newbie lays down and goes into subservient position,
exactly.
And the older one comes and stands above and hackles up, and right, and then everything is fine.
Exactly.
They worked it out, and didn't have to go to upper management. Yeah.
Well, and if they do go to, and unfortunately, if you do step in as upper management, that's a problem too, because then that submissive dog doesn't understand that dog was trying to tell you, no, that's not how we work. That's not what we do. And that's the best teacher for a dog is another dog, obviously in an appropriate way. Mm-hmm. But it's, someone said something to my puppy the other day and I said, that's fine. She'll understand communication. And I just kept walking, Right.
Right.
I don't think people understand that.
Right. How connected do you get with those dogs? Meaning, I know when I was hunting with dogs, when I had, when I was working clients and I had a string of dogs with me, they knew where I was. They couldn't, they didn't see me. They knew where I was. They knew how to come in, and you see them working scent, coming up behind and following in and that sort of thing. I imagine your dogs are doing the same thing. So you're moving in one direction and they're just sort of swirling around you. Yeah. Yeah.
You always have, I have a little min pin pug that I've walked for my entire career. She's 14 now.
Wow.
And we call her Referee.
Okay.
I've had to work really hard with her because her thing was, I'm insecure, so I'm going to bark at you and run up to you. So we worked on that because that's not a good look for a pack on the trail.
Yeah.
And so we work every day with that still to this day at 14. But she is right behind me. If I take a step, she goes to that same step. If I, so it's funny. But then if another dog is going to come in, she'll run ahead, and not anymore as much, but it's just interesting. You're like, what are you doing? There's always those that are behind and there's always those that are in front. And so, but yes, they come behind you. They'll check your leg, just like you said. Yeah, they'll find you. But for the most part, they are within, hey, come, not even a loud voice.
Okay, so they can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, when we'd cut a dog loose, he could go a ways.
I'm sure. And you probably had a GPS at that time for first, or?
Well, that was, I'm aging myself. I'm dating myself. But no, that was before GPSs for a time. It was before telemetry, or at least the lower end telemetry gear. The houndsmen were using the higher end telemetry stuff.
Okay.
I would use a telemetry unit. Dog would come in for training. That class would come in. We'd be in yard work for about 4 to 5 weeks. Whoa, control, bonding in, listening, getting them accustomed to me, accustomed to the group. And then we would go out and we'd use check cords in a more structured kind of release. And typically, because I had a thing they wanted. So I had a pouch full of homing pigeons.
Oh, okay.
And I was the be-all and end-all. The font of all homing pigeons in the world came out of that pouch. So you could get a dog that wanted to run pretty big, but he didn't want to go too far because I might produce a homing pigeon out of that pouch. So it was a draw. All right.
That's cool. Yeah.
And that would work for a time. And then depending on the genetics of the dog, at some point, you have to let him go.
Yeah.
And with some of those dogs, it was kind of like a train leaving a station. You'd see them and wait, I don't have a check collar on anymore. I'm not wearing a collar. What is this? And you see them, they're kind of looking, and they can move out a little ways. They're 100 yards out, and nothing's happening, and they're thinking, wow, this is new, and then they test it a little more, and then you'd get that look back, like, see ya.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. And so early on, before telemetry, I would use water.
Oh.
And I would wait. And one of the benefits of living in Southern Arizona, training in Southern Arizona, is that you got heat.
Yeah.
So I would typically start work before light,
mm-hmm.
and I would just hold a dog I was going to have a problem with till right at the end, where the sun would come up a little bit warm, feel it in the air. Okay. Because I knew that dog could think about running, and they could run for a while. But again, I was the only one with the water.
Yeah.
And we had made that introduction before the fact, so they knew that when they got thirsty, they needed to come to me. And you would see them, the brain would start working, and they would think, I think I figured this out. I can leave. I can just run away because there's nothing on us now. I can't. Hadn't got a rope on me. He's not got a collar on me. And see it coming. I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'd plan it out, and then I would wait and turn that dog loose at the end, and I'd let them get themselves in trouble. And they knew they needed to stay within 150 yards or so, but they would start leaving. You'd see the look back, the eye contact, and I would make one command. It's here. Say it once.
Yep.
Just once.
That's another thing. We talk way too much to our dogs.
Yeah, exactly. and you'd get that sort of, obfuscated kind of, I didn't hear anything. That kind of that kind of look in the eyes.
Right.
And they would get out, maybe they'd get out 200 yards, and I'd come for them, and I would just looked like that character in the Terminators, that cyborg, just straight line,
beelining, right?
Right, and they'd think, oh dear, I think I might have made a mistake here. I think I might be in trouble. I'm going to get scolded, and so they would bump, and you'd see that bumping. They'd let me come to within 60 yards, then the bump. 60 yards, then the bump. And of course, the hotter they got, the more they needed the water.
Yeah.
The tighter that space, that 60 yards became 50, 40, 30. And then at some point, just like a dominant dog in the yard, when the dominant dog come up and that subdominant just leans over the belly like, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would get the same thing.
Oh, okay.
And I would typically have to do that once.
Yeah.
And then they would think, geez Louise, this guy's crazy. He'd walk me down,
Right.
And I guess that's sometimes what it takes for them to believe us. You probably had the same experiences.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. And like I keep referring to Ace, but he was I had a dog prior, but, he's changed my life. I started hiking dogs because of him. He's an amazing dog, but he used to chase deer. And it just hit all of a sudden one day, and he left me on a trail that we hadn't been on yet, and he got himself lost chasing this deer. And so he spent 2 nights out, and until he wouldn't go up to people. He's not really a big fan of people per se. And finally he went into somebody's backyard and just started howling, because he howls and stuff. So anyway, we that day I brought him home and started whistle training him. I hadn't e-collar trained him yet. So we have a short, long whistle blow and just a regular whistle and so he would continue to do that a little bit, and I would just whistle. And if he wasn't there at the end of the trail, when I had to leave with my pack, I was close by, just right up the mountain here. I would just go drop my other dogs off and come back, and he was at the end of the trail howling. Telling me, I'm ready now.
Yeah. Where were you, Mom?
Yeah. And I'd whistle, and he would come run into the trailhead. And people are like, I've been trying to get him to come. I had treats. And he would just howl. Yeah. People just thought I was the meanest person. But literally one day I went up and I could hear him howling before I even got to the trailhead. And there was this bunch of people standing at the end of the parking lot, and they're like, I don't know what's wrong with that dog. And I went and stood right next to him, did our whistle, and he came running. And they were like, what the heck? I'm like, well, he was ready to come now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and, he was very smart.
Yeah.
But too smart for his own good, obviously. But like you said, he wasn't getting what he needed. And so I did allow him to do that. But once we e-collar trained him, I would tone him. I very rarely had to use the static electricity, but it's not a big deal. I would have. But I would tone him if we were walking away and he wasn't coming, like if we turned back. So I would just keep toning him, and then I'd give him a whistle, and that's all words I would say. He usually beat me, came down to the car in time. So, but it's amazing what dogs can do for people. And I think that we need to listen to them more as a society. So
They're smarter than we are.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
We had 2 short hairs, Becky and Willow. And
cute.
Willow was the youngest. Becky was the oldest. And they lived in a yard full of setters.
Okay.
So they were their own contingent, And one day we're messing around on the property, and no doubt Becky did it, but pulled Willow with her, and they drifted off. They got a little bit far. Maybe they got something in their nose, and off they went. And they went too far. They got themselves lost. Didn't know where they were.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I go looking, and I get a couple of older dogs to walk with me, and they're nowhere to be found. And we live against National Forest boundary. So
Okay.
they were gone most of the day.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call. Of course, they're wearing tags.
Yeah.
I get a phone call, and the person says, I think I have your dog. And it was after dark at that point. I said, I'm away, So
Right.
I get there, and she tells me the story. She says that they had just sat down to dinner. It's like, half an hour after dark. And they hear this scratch at the door.
Oh.
And what's that, and nothing. And then scratch again. And so she goes to look. She says she opens the door, and Becky barges her way through and comes in like, hey, it's dinner time. Where's my food?
Right, exactly.
You got any water? Where's the water bowl?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I said she didn't have another dog with her, and she said, no, just the one. So I'm thinking, oh dear. So
Yeah.
I show up, and of course I pull up and go to get Becky, and Willow's hiding in the tree line. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's amazing just the way their mind works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess when he decided to find somebody, because we lost him at, I don't know if the Salt Lake Valley, but Ensign Peak is where we were. It's at the very north end of right before you go to up 15.
Okay.
And we've done all the trails along this whole Bonneville shoreline. He made it all the way to Sunnyside Avenue, which is the Hogle Zoo.
So he went a ways then when you lost him.
Yeah, he went a ways. And I mean, you could see for miles with binoculars, and there's no black dog because it was spring. And so there wasn't a bunch of foliage and stuff. And so, I guess he had gotten the neighborhood, and he would have been able to make it all the way pretty much over here, but 80 stopped him. He couldn't get across I-80.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness. But
Yeah.
but he had seen this person walking her 2 dogs, and he was just kind of hanging back watching them. And she was like, go away. She thought it was a stray or some other dog that just was in the neighborhood. And I guess he just watched her. And in the morning, she was like, what is this noise at like 5 a.m.? And she said that her fence only has about this much space. It's like a cinder block thing. I don't know. He got himself in her backyard and was like, you're going to help me. You're the one I've decided, and I'll talk to you. And so, you just, I don't know how they think. I'm sure he ran into several people, but he didn't.
He had to make a determination.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, okay, I think I've spent enough
trustworthy
time
here.
out. Yeah. So we put flyers out, and people put on their coyote bait and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, no, he's too smart. I mean, but he's never done that before. But he spent some hours out and about. We call it a walkabout.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we had one female we lost. She was gone for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
3 days.
It's so hard.
And she crossed a highway.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And she was wearing an e-collar. We were hunting quail. She had an e-collar on, and I got a call from a gal who just berated me for torturing the dog with the electric collar. And was, gonna.
You're like, I can't use it. I don't know where she is.
well, the fact that she was wearing it.
Oh,
Was gonna.
Well, as we know,
there's no accounting for people, so yeah. Went and recovered her. Have you used the new telemetry stuff?
I like the
not telemetry, but the new GPS units.
No, but like I said, my friend that she has her own dog that's 2.5 now. That is a wanderer, and so she has one of those FI collars that does the GPS tracking like on her phone, and then she also does have a GPS Garmin that she uses.
The Astra,
But I haven't had to. Honestly, he's been my only runner, and since he's my own dog, I definitely took it less serious because he always usually came back. That first time, he hadn't even been e-collar trained, whistle trained, nothing, and so all the other measures worked just fine. And so, but I was curious. I mean, it's great to see her, we'll walk 5 miles and her dog has walked, 11 or something, you're just like, this is insane.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool
Yeah.
information though.
Yeah.
I do. It's really neat.
Well, it's a new world, really is, with the electronics and this stuff. Again, I'm not of that generation, so I came up, before there was that stuff.
Yeah.
And in truth, once a dog has made that connection, they follow you. They're with you. They know where you are. And it's you're part of that group, and you're part of their group, and they know to stay with you.
Yeah. No, it's true. And they do, even when, I have a couple friends that I'll catch up and hike with their pack and stuff. And it's funny because if my pack knows their pack is ahead of us, they will, you can see they're smelling there. I'm like, oh, my friends are up there. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
And when we do run into other people and we're like, hey, pull over, because we use the command pull over, my pack goes with me, her pack goes with her, complete separation. It's amazing.
Wow. It's
pretty cool. That's one of my favorite things. I think, I'll be like, come on guys, pull over, and my pack comes right on over, and so it's pretty fun.
Well, it's amazing, different parts of the country that I've worked in, because I will get requests from folks that are a hiking group. And maybe it's not a business with other people's dog, but each person has their own dog, and they meet 3 times a week, and they have a particular hikes that they take and that sort of thing. And so let's say there's 6 or 7 dogs in the group, 8 dogs in the group. We do the training all at once, and train each dog within that same class.
For what?
For snake work, for reversion work.
Yes.
And boy, they watch out for each other. They're cueing off of each other. It's amazing how dogs communicate with themselves that we humans just aren't even privy to, just don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I have one pack that every one of them are avoidance trained. And so I love it because I'm like, oh, let's just go here. I know that's rattlesnake. And like I said, I aces 8 years ago with you, and I've never seen a snake on the trail. And I don't know if he has, or, we do spend time in Arizona, like I was saying. And, maybe he's smelling some. I've only seen him kind of do that whole avoid off the trail thing one time that I've noticed. But he was always ahead of me too. And so it was great because I could watch him, but you have to remember to watch them. Right. I think a lot of people are like, come on,
Right.
And it's like, oh no, what are they telling you? Another lesson to learn.
Right.
So.
And they'll often, they won't acknowledge a snake.
Right. Oh, that's him. That's his MO.
Yeah.
He's like, nope.
Yeah. In a dog's world, to acknowledge a thing, to look at a thing is to challenge it. So.
Yeah. We did that just the other day at the farm. We went over to Wheeler Farm, and the puppy's never been close to a horse or a cow. We have chickens, and so she's fine with that. But the horses, she just sat right with me with her back to the horse.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was hilarious. I was like, well, there you go. That's one way.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Smart way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, I don't know what that is, but I'm just going to.
It's much bigger than me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, that's good.
Well, it's an option for most folks because they don't have that kind of time to spend with their dog. They're not able to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in other parts, similar folks do similar kind of work. And it's probably, I'm presuming you don't advertise, it's word of mouth. And,
Only, yeah.
Yeah. And you're pretty selective about who you, and that's how I was when I trained bird dog.
Generally, I didn't fire the dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really enjoy working with dogs. It's the people that sometimes can be, it can be more difficult. Yeah.
I was substitute teaching before I did this, and I had been kind of helping out with my friend, like I said, just walking pack walks and stuff with her, and I decided to do some subbing, and I was like, okay, nope. I'm much more suited to be with dogs. So, I mean, bless those teachers. That's all I got to say, because that's a hard job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's got to be a dream for most folks just to be able to do that. And I know that for me, it never got old.
Yeah. There's some days, you just, I was laughing because I said, I'm glad this isn't a video because I have a hurt on my face because I face planted yesterday on the trail. And it's like, some days still, you're like, I have the best job in the whole entire world, but it is challenging me today, and unfortunately, sometimes we meet people that are challenging, but you just have to take all the good and just understand that we're so fortunate to be doing this. And, and people always ask me, you hike all year long? I'm like, yes, winter is my favorite time to hike because pretty much trails are to yourself and it's so fun in the winter. So it's a whole new experience hiking out in the winter and just being in 2 feet of snow, cutting trail. It's just so fun.
Right.
So
I imagine too, it would be fascinating when you have if you have snow on the ground, the scent cues are pretty fresh and they're pretty easy to read, and you're seeing tracks to confirm. Yeah. The dogs are reading everything with their nose, but you can confirm what the dogs is doing most by the tracks. Yeah.
Definitely blood, there you come across a scene. You're just like, okay, eyes on a swivel here. What's going on? And I've come across like a fresh kill before. And I'm like, okay, everybody, let's move through this. We came back. It was gone. It was so fresh. So they just waited for us to pass. And I'm sure it was a mountain lion, but it was, that was the craziest one I think I've seen. We've had several moose encounters and, the dogs, we just get off trail and let them go through. And for the most part, moose are good because they don't run. So dogs don't necessarily respond. They'll bark at them. Yeah. But they're huge. Yeah. And they don't run generally. Yeah. So whereas deer run, and so then that prey drive kicks in. Right. And so they're like, woohoo! Yeah. But it's nice when it's 2 feet of snow on the ground too. They can't keep up. Right. With the deer. Right. So.
And you don't have wolves here yet.
We don't have wolves, but coyotes are super aggressive. We have them just right here on the foothills, and it is really wild. I had a German Shepherd. She just passed away this January, but she was big German Shepherd. And one day we were hiking, and I look over, and I was like, "Wait, where's McKinley?" And McKinley was like right next to me, and I was just like, "Okay." So you just start making a bunch of noise. Yeah. Walk away. We've had coyotes follow us down the trail. Coyotes they're a little risky, but you just try and avoid them. Throw rocks. Yeah. Just kind of say go away. But wolves, that would be a whole new experience.
No, from friends and folks acquaintances that have had that experience. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Canada. Apparently that the dog's just a meal to a wolf. So. That can turn bad. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard stories of little dogs being plucked off right next to their owners with the coyote. And so, you keep the little ones near, and then you just keep everyone. You leash. Yeah. If they're really close, you just leash the dogs up. And, we're always prepared. We always have leashes with us.
And do you carry bear spray, or how would you handle that?
No bear spray. I have never had bear spray. I've never encountered a bear on the trail, even hiking.
Well, bear spray would be effective against a lion, coyote. It'd give you an option.
Yeah. I carry a whistle, a little air gun, the Pekka Pincer.
It's been years ago. We used to train in northern Arizona, my wife and I, during the summer. She was teaching in school. in the summer, she'd have her summer break, and we'd gather up all the dogs, and we'd go up into the high parks to train while it was, where it was cool.
Yeah.
And big tent, big cabin tent, and, maybe you'd have 10, 12 dogs with us. And
Wow.
2 cots, and then the entire floor is nothing but a carpet of sleeping dogs,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And then we'd run a chain gang. So in the morning, I'd get up, and I'd take them out, and I'd clip them to their place on the chain gang, and then I'd get them watered, fed, that kind of stuff. And Nicole was still in bed, sleeping, or laying in bed, and I go out, and I'm tending to the dogs, and a pair of coyotes come in.
Oh.
It was a male and a female. And these coyotes are living off elk. They were up high.
Oh, wow.
And he came in. And at a distance, I saw him maybe 80 yards. They come through the trees, come in, and they stop. They're watching us. The dogs are on chains, and the dogs are looking at them. And the dogs have an idea that something isn't good.
Right.
And the male, with the female following, the male comes tiptoeing in again, buys another 15 yards, closing in. And I'm just standing there watching him. He wasn't concerned with me. He was
right.
And I had a handgun, and I told him. I just looked at him. I said, "If you come any closer, I'm going to kill you."
Yeah.
Yeah. And he thought about it. He stood there and he looked at me, and there was eye contact. He thought about
That's
it.
frightening.
You're right.
Eye contact.
He thought about it, and then he slowly turned around and walked away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be frightening.
Well.
But what would you do? I guess you would shoot them, but
Yeah. Well, it was not my preference.
Well, of course not.
Yeah. But I know my mother-in-law, she, and I hear horror stories because I do a lot of trainings in residential communities with little dogs, tiny guys, little backyards, cinder block fences. Okay.
Right.
And I bet I've heard it 200 times. Stories about coyote attacks. And coming over the fence and taking the dog. And my mother-in-law, she had her little dog on a lead, was 10 yards from her front door. And the coyote came in and just grabbed that dog and took off with it, ripped the lead right out of her hand.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and he was a little, he was probably about 25 pounds.
Wow.
He wasn't a small guy.
That's,
Maybe 20 pounds. But he was a Queensland Heeler Jack Russell cross.
Huh.
Imagine that for a genetic mix. And he was so nasty, just growling and hissing and spitting, and that the coyote carried him about 30 yards and dropped him and took off.
Awesome.
And, and then we gathered the dog up, a $1,600 vet bill.
Right, yeah.
Put his throat back together. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, and then they're quarantined, too. I don't know if they still do for rabies.
Yeah, I don't know that they did it. I don't recall them doing that in Arizona.
Yeah.
It's a concern. I've had a lot of coyote contacts, and I'd be more afraid of coyote than anything else.
No, totally. They watch you, and we had one last winter, I think, and it just kind of stayed up the hill a bit from us and just followed us. And that's nerve-wracking because you're like, what's your plan here?
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal? So,
well, the issue is that it's not one coyote.
Oh, right.
So you saw that one coyote on the hill.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
They have friends.
Yeah. Well,
they have pack also.
Another story where I had 2 clients. We're in the north end of San Bernardino Valley, just over the Mexican border, northeast corner of Arizona. All wild country, all short grass prairie, big domed, volcanic, soft black malpie mountains going up, And the 2 mounds and a saddle in between, and had a little setter down, and she was running, and shorter legs, and just ran a mile a minute. And she's running out, she's looking for scaled quail, going. Goes up and goes over a saddle about 400 yards out and disappears. And that's the sort of place that scaled quail coveys would hold because of that slope right beside them. They'd be on the lower ground in the grass, and then when something pushed them, they'd go up on the malpie on the slope. So I assumed, when she didn't come back, that she was on point. So I steer my 2 guys, and we start up in that direction, and we're maybe 300 yards away from this where she disappeared. And I look, and here comes Dandy, running 1,000 miles a minute. I mean, her little legs are just going, right? And she was an independent little thing, but there was no equivocation. She was coming straight for us.
Right.
She wasn't pretending.
Yeah.
She was coming straight for us. And I I'm watching her, and about 50 yards behind her, she comes over, then a coyote comes over.
Yeah.
And it's a big coyote.
They're
and
big.
He's just sort of running, that sort of loop-de-doop-doop,
Yeah.
loop-de-doop-doop, just sort of flopping and just keeping a pace.
Yeah,
right?
just perfectly.
Yeah, perfect. And just running her, just keeping her. And I'm watching this, and I got two shooters with me with shotguns, which doesn't do us any good at 300 yards, 200 yards. And I have a handgun, which doesn't do us any good at 30 yards. So I'm watching her. I'm watching the coyote behind. And that coyote came to within about 130 yards. And then I saw the other two coyotes.
Oh.
Like outriggers.
Oh, wow.
Waiting for her to turn one way or the other.
Oh, wow.
And that's why she
was just beelining it.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Instinct, I guess.
Well, I'm sure she knew they were there. And I don't know what happened over the top.
Right.
Because there might have been, an altercation over the top.
Yeah.
So, it is an issue.
Well, that's one thing that's one of our moose altercations was the younger dogs were out front.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden they come beelining it back, and we're like, what did you just bring? And, we were like, just jump off the trail because it was super snowy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. It was a gigantic female moose. And I had this yellow lab with me, Henry. So if his mom wants a shout out. Mm-hmm. But older, had ACL repair, both back legs, and sat in the middle of the trail. And I was like, Henry, come. That moose is full on flying. It stopped. Henry was right in front of Henry, and Henry used the moose's legs to turn over to be in a different position, and the moose walked over it and started running, beelining down.
Running away from you or going
running away. We were just like, what? I mean, I thought Henry was a goner, just going to get smushed.
He's stomp
but
him,
he just used her leg to pivot.
And just went into like a subdominant?
No, he just kind of went on the other side of the trail. He was just laying there. I was just dumbfounded. I was like, can't carry this 100-pound dog out. I'm going to have to call his mom and say he's been smushed by a moose.
Yeah,
Nope, and the moose just kept running down the trail. So we've had another one, Ace, my poodle, same place up in Immigration Canyon, and she's a resident moose there, and apparently she's pretty ornery.
Yeah.
Very rarely do we see her, but we've had 2 incidents with her. But we were like going on the trail again, and she came, and we got off, and I was like, off trail, and Ace was just dinking around in the back, and all of a sudden he looks back, and I could see the white of his eyes, like seeing her come behind, and he just beelined it down the trail in front of her. And it was great because there were other hikers on the trail, and all of a sudden this poodle runs by them. And they were like, what the heck was that? Well, the moose grazed them because they had a little warning because he came flying through. And so we were like, oh my gosh, I said, Ace is still flying down the trail. He just went until she kind of went off, veered off. And the people were like, did you see a black poodle? And they're like, yeah, he flew right by us. Thank goodness, because the moose hit my son's shoulder running by. So when we found him, he was so excited. He was like, did you see that? I was,
I wonder what kind of messaging was going between those two animals.
I don't know, but he just, his face was hilarious. I mean, you don't really see facial expressions a ton, but his eyes, he turned around and like, oh goodness, I better just go. I don't know why he didn't just jump off the trail.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just ran as hard as he could. But those people were freaking out because this huge moose came flying down the trail after him. So it wasn't necessarily chasing him.
Yeah.
I think it was just leaving.
Right.
But he thought it was chasing him.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It was a convenient trail.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun. I mean, there's fun stories. Like those kind of stories are like the coyotes up on the hill, and you're just like, oh no. And you turn around and they're there.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, let's just walk away from them.
Yeah.
But then you don't want to turn your back sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, where I live in Arizona, we have a lot of lions.
Yeah.
The little town I live in, we have a lot of lions in town.
Huh.
And we did lose a dog to a lion off our porch.
Wow.
And we have a little Mexican restaurant. one thing Arizona is known for is Mexican restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
Good Mexican
Good
restaurants.
food, yeah.
And
the best.
they have a grease trap out by the back door.
Okay.
And this is the town 3,500 people, so it's a lot of, infill and, a lot of wild land, interface.
Right.
And it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I walk out the door, and I go to my truck, and I look back, and I've gone past the building, I'm looking to the back, and I see the green grease trap off the side, and there's a mound behind it. And I look, and I say, oh, that's a mountain lion.
Oh, goodness.
And you see the big tail and that black tip on his tail, and he's standing there. And so I stop and I watch, and he, of course, the lion pretty immediately knows I see him.
Yeah.
And he vanishes. He just vaporizes and drifts away, like a bobcat leaving. And so I stay there a while and watch, and there was a string of house cats coming to that grease trap.
Oh.
And it was a food source for them.
Oh, sure.
Because that grease trap had bits of meat and stuff floating in it.
Oh, my gosh.
And so he was just there picking off cats.
Right.
Yeah, it was an easy lunch for him. He went to the Mexican restaurant to get some lunch.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
They kind of live in right amongst you.
Yeah. I always feel like there's definitely places I'm like, we're being watched. Mm-hmm. I've never encountered a mountain lion myself, but, there's just days you're just like, oh, I am being watched. You can feel it.
Yeah, you get that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife, she's had, in the last few years, last 3 or 4 years, she's come upon 2 young mountain lions.
Okay.
Still have spots, not sub-adults, not baby.
Oh, okay.
Now, maybe mom was somewhere, okay?
Right, they're still around.
I've seen 3 in the field.
Wow.
And that's unusual. You just typically don't see them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's better that you don't.
It's better than you don't. I'm sure they're happier that way.
Like I said, I know I've been watched, and I mountain bike up in these mountains too. And, I've had friends that have ridden by a couple, that they're just like, oh boy, let's just keep going, in dusk. And there's my mountain lion right there. She's our little. So. Well,
what are you going to do with your older kid? He's going to come to a point. You're going to have to get a cart.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to pull him along with the cart.
Yeah. So Wednesdays I do a senior pack hike. Oh, okay. So because it became necessary.
Okay.
So I have a 9-year-old Newfoundland that I walk, and then that little Bella, the 14-year-old, and Ace, who's 13. So he always hikes on Wednesdays. We took him up on, we'll take him out ourselves, but he used to hike with me 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. He's down to about 2, but he still goes out. He's having a little laryngeal paralysis. Breathing, so that gets a little difficult, but he loves to go out. He knows he sits in the front. He's my only front seat partner, and he's like, that's what we do. We're going on the trail. I get his collar on. He's like, okay, let's go. So it's interesting because on trail you wouldn't even know he doesn't see what.
Yeah.
He navigates the rockiest of rocks, and sometimes he can't get up as well, so I'll help him boost up. But it's amazing. Like, he just does it. He finds his own path if it's too difficult.
I do a lot of deaf dogs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I have had multiple blind dogs in for training.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing because they...
Would you say blind is easier to train than a deaf dog? Because they use so many other their hearing, for one thing, and their nose, but...
I don't know how to answer that. They're different.
Yeah, sure.
And I think the thing with a blind dog, typically when a blind dog comes in for training with me, for an aversion training, they're with a human that they're really bonded to.
Yeah, sure.
Really bonded to. So there's that telemetry.
Okay.
So when mom or dad's right there with us, they're keying off something else. They can probably keying off of mom or dad. And I think they develop that. They can key off me.
Sure.
And so much of it's scent. You know? So much of it is scent.
Right.
And they can gauge distance with scent.
Oh, huh.
They can pinpoint a thing with scent. Just like human hearing, we can pinpoint where sound comes from. They can smell a thing and know where it's coming from. So I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
Different, but we get it done.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
They're smart. I wanted to ask you really quick about when you had the 3-month training.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that age, at 10 months, do they get so bonded with you? And then people always ask me, why aren't you a trainer, like a dog trainer? I am a very friendly person. Don't get me wrong. But I can't handle people that won't follow through. And so how does that, I mean, I guess your people are very set on wanting to be hunting dogs and they want to teach them this skill and they probably need you. But for 3 months to be gone away, and then how do they learn from their own people after you?
That's sort of a misnomer, because a gun dog doesn't learn. You don't teach a gun dog. It's genetic.
Okay. It's just so inherent in them that
Right. So you provide them the opportunity for the genetic switches to click on. And I think if you're a good trainer, you feel a certain passion about it. I mean,
Sure.
you're excited.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same when you hit the trail with those dogs. You're ready to go. And it's a great day. And this is fun. And they key off of that. They bounce off of that.
Sure.
If you're doing hunting dog work, then you also have that additional benefit if you have the very thing that they want.
Okay.
So if I can provide birds, if I can fly homing pigeons for them or pick up birds for them, you connect on a genetic level. It's a different thing. It was 3 months because it took 3 months.
Right. But I just wonder about when they go home, if they're not getting that same genetic.
I would try, and I was always very, very open, because it was easy for me to train a dog. It really is.
Well, like you said, you have the passion for it. You understand how to do it. And
right. The people are the hard thing.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And some folks really commit.
Right.
So let's say you got a class of 10 dogs, okay? And so maybe 3 out of that 10 are committed.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe they show up. Maybe I see them 3 or 4 days a week when they can do it. You know, I always see them on weekends or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I would adjust my schedule to try and benefit them so they could be available.
Sure.
And then you have maybe another 3 to 4 that sporadic.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you had the others that would pick the dog up 3 months.
But then what do they expect from them? You know, like just to be able to go out any old time, or do they go, you know what I mean? It seems like they need more. Like a hunting dog that's a true hunting dog I feel like it would need more exercise. I don't know. Maybe not. Might not just hang out in the yard.
No, they need to be engaged.
Yeah.
You know, it's a conscious decision, because if you're going to do that work, one thing I do is I'd see in the paper a German Shorthair female, 6 months old, didn't work out, mom's angry, wants a dog gone, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I could look at a dog and just tell what the genetics were and whether it would make a bird dog, that kind of thing. And I did that for a time. I'd go ahead and bring those dogs and roll them into the training, and then we'd find somewhere for them to be.
Right.
Sell the dog, in effect. But, you know, then I worry about them.
Right.
It's just worry about them, and it's never 100%. You never find 100% good. You just never do. And this is sort of how I made peace with it. And maybe it's a personal thing for my own life and my own perceptions and the way dogs, what they've meant to me. They really are assigned to us. I mean, dogs come into our life independent of any choices necessarily we made often.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And a lot of times it's the perfect dog.
Right.
For a particular, this, like the universe said, okay.
Situation.
Yeah. All right. This is kid, this is where you need to be. We're going to send you down. Okay.
Right.
And I've watched dogs with their people, and their job is to take care of those people.
Yeah.
Even when the people fail them, even when the people aren't 100%. And it's that dog's job to try and find a way in harmony to bring them along. I mean, that's kind of been my sense of it.
Yeah.
And I'm reticent to interfere with that.
I like that.
And that's a judgment if I'm saying, well, I don't think that this is a good match. I don't think this should be.
Right.
I didn't make that match.
It's not your choice. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that. I'm going to adopt that.
Okay. Well, all you can be is the best you can be.
That's right.
All you can bring into the world is the best that you want for the world.
Right.
That's all you can do. Because anything else, to my experience in life, just doesn't work. Yeah.
Right.
And the truth is that dogs are the best in the world.
They are.
They are the best in the world.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It is so true. I always thought I wanted to come back as my dog. Like, be recreated into my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, they've had the best, and they are the best, and so you do.
Yeah.
That is true. They are just the best.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a good place for us to wrap up.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have anything you want to add?
No, this was fun. That's thank you for
Okay.
contacting me.
And I know that you do have a Facebook page up, and
I know.
I have to put glasses on to read that.
Well,
Doggone Hikin'.
yeah.
That's DAWGONEHIKIN'.
Yes, just like the dogs gone hiking.
Okay. If you want to see some pictures of dogs having fun on the trail.
Yeah, that's my office views.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed spending time with you and talking with you. And I think people will enjoy hearing another.
Well, it's fun to hear your stories too. I didn't know that you would do that. Hunting dogs were trained like that. It's awesome to hear different ways that different dogs are trained.
If you like this episode, I invite you to visit our website, freerangedogs.com. It's where you can find the stuff you need to live the free-range dog lifestyle. I want to help you with that. Book a consultation call or an in-person training, attend one of our ongoing events, or join our online membership program. We got it all on freerangedogs.com. All right, it's time to head back to the truck and the water bucket for the thirsty dogs. This is Webb Parton signing off, wishing you the boundless joy that comes when you share the outdoors with your best friend.